I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. We are continuing our journey of Solomon's University, part 6. And we have derived that title in the event that you're just logging on and just becoming aware of who we are. And by the way, we welcome all the new listeners and followers, or whether it's people that once was with us and now returning, but we're just glad to see you coming back on board again. And in the event you're not aware of Solomon's University, and where we got that title from, we got it from last month. We were able to enter into spiritually, in a spiritual realm, spiritual dynamics. We were able to enter into what I refer to as Solomon's space. And, you know, Solomon, the wisest man, the richest man that ever lived, the son of David, the grandson of Jesse. And so as a result of that, now we have discovered by looking carefully at 16 years of teaching Proverbs chapter 3, that we have actually opened up a spiritual university where Solomon and his wisdom and his power is indeed our instructor, the author, the writer, the teacher of all of us, to teach us how to be wise and wealthy, or blessed and rich, I think, to be like Solomon. And so we have had this experience. It's been a great time over the past month of, you know, teaching Proverbs chapter 3. And Solomon's University is, in my estimation, is greater than Cambridge or Oxford over there in the UK, or Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Columbia over here in the US. It is just the greatest university ever. And all you have to do is log on and listen to me teach, as long as I'm in this particular mode, and you can go to school. And we have discovered as well spiritually that in Solomon's University, as we who are students under the leadership, the tutelage, the wisdom of Solomon, can learn law, and biblical law, that is, which is the greatest law. All the other laws of America come from the Bible. We can learn how to succeed at economics, philosophy, and medicine. All these things we learn from Solomon. And I want to be able to try to make that clear to you without having to do this intro every time. But I realize there are a lot of new people, and even some of the older people that have been listening to us for some time may not have caught on to the theme of what's going on. And this is a reality. This is not hyperbole. This is a reality that we're now in Solomon's University. And Proverbs chapter 3 is the flagship of this universal university type teaching on law. And all of this will cause us to succeed economically, professionally, and be able to fulfill our dreams and our desires. In addition to that, you know, we have been teaching about a 20% increase in your lifestyle. And we want to ask you, do you feel like you're growing? Do you feel like you are increasing, ever so incrementally, even though you may not have reached a 20% mark? But I believe a lot of people feel that they're making changes and adjustments. And one of the things that we talked about in terms of way of increasing, of course, is to increase your patience. In your patience, Jesus said, ye possess your soul. And patience, of course, is a virtue that we all know about, but it is also a tool that many people fail to use. It's probably one of the overlooked tools that you can use to enhance yourself. And by becoming more patient, you're going to change things around you, and you're going to change people. Did you know that? If you decide that you're going to be a bit more patient, it's going to change things around you. And it's going to change people around you. It's going to change things in your life simply by deciding to be more patient. You're going to change things. I've said that already 3 times now. And you're going to change people around you, because once you become more patient, people are going to have to respond to that. There is no way people can ignore the fact that you've decided to become more patient. And that's one of the ways. And patience will not lead to a decrease in your lifestyle. It will lead to an increase. And it will lead you to another not very well used tool called critical or hard decisions. And usually a critical and a hard decision is a good decision. Most people spend most of their lives taking the easy way out, making the easy decisions. But Jesus says, narrow is the way and straight is the gate. There's a church up in Westchester County, not far from where I now sit. The name of the church is the Straight Gate Church. Just to be able to, I guess, the pastor wants everybody to know you're coming here. The gate is straight and the way is narrow. The Broadway is where you find a whole lot of people, Jesus said. Whole lot. So making critical decisions will also increase your life. So becoming more patient, you'll take more time in making your decisions. I'm going to come back to that. I'm not through with that yet. But this teaching of Solomon's University and Solomon's Space. I'm just thankful to be able to be the teacher of this extraordinary lesson. These are extraordinary times for us. Or they're extraordinary times for me, I believe. And I believe that most people that are associated with ATLAH, even though there might be other things going on, for instance, such as we got a vicious foreclosure action against us. But let me say a word about that, and I'll say more about that foreclosure as well. This foreclosure is giving us the opportunity to exhibit a modern-day David and Goliath experience. I said on Saturday, on the Sabbath worship, that I don't know that I would want to have had my life in ministry without this experience. Now, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't know what it was. But I think that all of us need a great challenge in our lives. I'm coming back to Solomon's University, but this is also very critical to Solomon's University in general. All of us need a great challenge in our lives. Now, ATLAH is the greatest challenge. ATLAH is greater than the foreclosure. The foreclosure is simply an appendage or if you will, ancillary, if you must, part of ATLAH itself. But the ATLAH does not threaten the way the foreclosure does. It's a great challenge. And I would say to all of you that ATLAH is a great, great challenge. The foreclosure is a great challenge for me and for those of us that are fighting this battle. It gives us an opportunity to stand as David against Goliath. And we're going to come out a winner, and we'll be the talk of the town forever and forever and forever. We're going to, as David is, without Goliath, David would have never become king. You follow what I'm saying? So if you got a great challenge in your life right now, be a little bit patient, take a close look at it. Be a little bit patient, take a close look at it. Now, our program producer, Matron Rainbow Farr, has a great challenge in her life right now, a great challenge. And it's a great challenge to all of us as well. But you need great challenges in your life. You do. You don't get wisdom sitting on a park bench. You look like the man that thinks all the time. I'm coming back to that. But this Solomon University teaching and Solomon Space is just, I'm thankful to the Lord that he's let me be. He could have given this to some other preacher. God does what he wants to do. Now, here's one other thing about Solomon's Space that I want to say to you that I've discovered, get a little bit political here. And that is this, is that Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1 through 20 and especially verse 11, pardon me, verse 11 where it says, despise not, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. I need to make this succinctly said so it can be succinctly and fully understood. But Hamite people, now they call themselves black or African American, for millenniums, that means thousands of years, have despised the fact that Noah chastened Ham and his grandson Canaan. And leave that there, Mr. Engineer. In Genesis chapter, I think it's chapter 9, Genesis chapter 9, verse 24, I believe it is. Let me just quickly find it. There you go, quick on. I'm going to get it in just a moment. Noah chastened his son Ham for uncovering his nakedness. And, Genesis chapter 9, verse 24, Noah awoke from his wine and knew that what his younger son had done unto, and he said, cursed be Canaan, the servant of servants, shall he be unto his brethren. So that Genesis chapter 9, verse 24 was a chastening by Noah of Ham. And the Hamites, to this very day, now that happened thousands of years ago, to this very day, have not accepted that correction. And I think that sometimes people, a few people, and I probably shouldn't give them very much attention, think, well, Pastor Manning, you're saying that you have now discovered that that's what's happening with black people. And yes, that's why they've not made it on the world stage like everybody else. That's why they're still at the bottom of the social register or the world stage. And then there's one other, and I'm coming back to that, the fact that despise not the chastening of the Lord. Despise not that Noah said to Ham that your son Canaan and all black people from now on going to be slaves. Don't despise that. Don't be weary about that. For whom God loveth, he corrected. Let me be more contemporary. I'm coming back to that thing, man. I know how difficult that is to grasp when you understand how much water has gone under the bridge of rebellion against that very verse. But let me just say one other thing. From some of my marriage counseling, where I tell the man that's getting ready to marry the young woman, I said, now if you really want to know what she's going to be like, check out how she responds to her father. So when I was dating Elizabeth, I met her parents, and that was good enough. But I wanted to hang around her parents and let her hang around there. So I went over their house and we ate and we sat down and watched. What I wanted to do, I wanted to find out how she responded to her father. I wanted to see what kind of relationship she had with her father. That's what I wanted to check out. I was being nosy, but I didn't tell anybody I was being nosy. Because I understand this. The way she responds to her father is the way she's going to respond to me. That's just how that is. Now, of course, can that change? Can there be a good response that can change and go bad? Of course. Can there be a bad response and change and go good? Yes, of course. But the rule of thumb is you start out with where that relationship between the daughter and the father. You start out there. Now, it can change, get worse, or get better when it comes to the marriage situation. So I checked it out. I was watching her for a while. So after I saw how she responded to him over a period of months, I was comfortable. But what I want to further say is this, and this is so critical. When I've had some relationship with the Lord, people don't think very much about them. And again, all the naysayers and doubters, I shouldn't give any credit to. But I believe that this verse, Proverbs chapter 3, is like discovering in a political way, is like discovering the cure for cancer. I really believe that. I believe that discovering that Hamite people have despised what Noah did when he chastened his son Ham and Canaan is like discovering a cure for cancer. And not just that, but many Hamites, some of the Israelites, and not many of them, but they don't even want to be Hamites. They want to try to claim that they're Jews. They want to claim that they're Shem, though nobody's ever served them. But I feel that this whole teaching of Solomon's University, increasing your life by 20%, it's like, what they say, well, if you graduate Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Cambridge or Oxford, or, you can write your own ticket in life. And, well, it probably has some merit of truth to that, because if you graduate one of those schools, most people want to hire you because you have demonstrated a great ability of discipline, a great ability of intellect. And so that's already baked into the cake when a man hires you. He knows that you're smart. He knows that you're disciplined. He knows that you got it going on. But I have to tell you that this Solomon's University gives us a far greater opportunity when we look at what Solomon has said. But looking at what Solomon has said, and we now realize that Hamites have despised how Noah chastened Ham. Again, let me restate. To me, it's like discovering a cure for cancer. That's how I feel. Now, you may not agree. You may not think that it's all that important. But for me, it's like discovering a cure for cancer. And then the other thing is that if we make it in a contemporary fashion, if you look at most Hamite people that call themselves black or African American, most Hamites of the last 50 years, up to 60 years of age right now, have been raised in an undisciplined way where they've not been chastened, they have not been corrected. So as a result of that, what little opportunity they had for global, if you will, economic development, global leadership, that too has been lost because they've not been led, they've not been raised by strong fathers that corrected them. So therefore, they have a poor job performance, and it really isn't their fault. They just don't understand. If you let a child grow up the first 15, 16 years of their life, and you don't chasten them, you don't punish them, even to the point where you have to put a rod on their back. Now, years ago, teachers used to have in their classroom a little paddle. And they put that paddle of Johnny's behind, and they had a saying, well, if you don't correct little Johnny now, if you don't correct little Johnny, he's going to grow up to be Big Bad John. But you bring a paddle into school anywhere now, and they will arrest you and put you in the electric chair, because the whole concept now is that you don't punish children. So children grow up without correction. Now, that's in public places, but even in the homes. One of the problems with the Hamite people is 90% of the homes don't have fathers in the homes. That is an epidemic of biblical proportion. When you look out, if a person such as myself, now some of the liberals and all the other crazy white people blamers and pinch-nosed Negroes and house Negroes, well, I don't even talk to them because they're crazy. But when I look out and I see 90% of black children's homes don't have a father, that is a nuclear explosion of trouble, of prison, unemployment, disease, crime. I mean, that is a nuclear explosion when you got that many children growing up without fathers in the home. And that number is accurate. So you can see, even if one was able to understand accepting that Noah chastened his son Ham and Canaan, but the very fact that that boy grew up without a father that would discipline him, he doesn't understand when he goes to work, he doesn't understand his role of being subservient and obedient. He doesn't understand that. He doesn't. It's and you can't you can't the first year, 3-4 months on a job. That boss is not going to be able to train that man, boy, on what he should have been trained the first 17 years of his life. It ain't going to happen. And plus, he's going to reject it. So therefore, he's last employed, first fired, and at some point, it becomes an economic catastrophe when you got that many black men who, for the very simple reason, not because white people are racist, but for the very simple reason that he doesn't understand discipline. He doesn't appreciate when he's corrected. He doesn't understand it. So you got this massive unemployment. And when you do employ, when he does stay on a job, it's usually at a low end where you don't have to really bother with him very much. So he's not going to make very much money. So you got this massive economic epidemic among black people where everybody else, even Hispanics and others who there too are Hamite, but they have fathers in the home. And everybody else. And perhaps the greater of the Jewish, you find a Jewish boy growing up without his mother and father in the home is rare. It's like the Queen of India, the Star of India diamond, to find a Jewish boy growing up without his mother and father. They're always there all the time, which then sets that boy in the right direction. But when you look at the explosion, you got all these pitch-nosed Negroes, house Negroes, fools running around here blaming white folk for everything wrong with black folk, when the problem is right there in the home. They got to start in the home. And listen, if you look at the home, if you will, upbringing of everybody that's been shot by the police, black boys, what you're going to find consistently that his daddy didn't raise him. His mama did. So when the police stopped him, and he doesn't understand he's supposed to respond to authority. He doesn't understand, I swear, before God, he doesn't understand. You would better be able to, when the police would ask him to solve the equation of how to get a rocket to space and back, he could probably do that before he can explain to you, I'm supposed to respect authority. He doesn't understand it. Police going to shoot him, going to bust a cap on him. Every one of them. So it's an epidemic. And so someone like myself, I see all these pitch-nosed Negroes, all these house Negroes, all these pimps in the pulpit, all running around here blaming white folks. But that's not the problem. It's nowhere near the problem. It's nowhere near it. But the other dilemma is that even though I'm explaining it right now, those who have not been raised under the biblical despise not the correctioning of by your father, those who have not been raised under the power of what Solomon and the wisest man don't even understand what I'm explaining because they don't have the plant bed to understand. Listen, Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived, doggone it. You pinch-nosed Negro, you house Negroes and pulpit pimps. Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived, and he said, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary in his correction. Was he wrong? Was he a fool? Who's the fool? You, Mr. House Negro, you, Mr. Pension-Nose Negro, who's the fool? You or Solomon? Running around here, white man this, white man that, white man this, white man that. Now you're running around here, the one thing that the white man has done told you to get in bed with another man and then marry him, kiss him and marry him. So I think this matter of Solomon's University to discover that the problem with Hamite people and the difference between them and the Jews is that Hamites despise the fact that Ham was chastened by his father Noah and Canaan and cursed him. And that's never been embraced. If Hamite people, they call themselves black and African American, but if they ever embraced that, it would change the world. it would change the world. You may not be able to see that. You may not understand it. And probably if you did see the potential of it, you would only see the potential of it if it was said from somebody who was also a liar and a trickster. But God ain't gonna give this to them. At any rate, I think I need to take a break. Do you mind if I do that? But when I come back, I want to talk more about the whole business of the 20% increase, how we got to Solomon's University, and how you can actually take charge of your life. You can actually take charge of your life now by laying siege on the why. I tell you what, here, let's do this, all right? Who is the person that you think who's the most important leader right now among Hamite people? The black African-American people, that's what they call themselves all the time, Negroes even. Who's the most prominent leader? Let's take, for instance, a guy like Barack Hussein, the long-legged Mac Daddy Obama, right? Look at what Obama says, right, if you're Hamite. Now, if you're Japheth, I'm going to send you over there to Donald Trump, so don't get beside yourself. And then compare the way Solomon says raise children, and that's just one of the aspects of Proverbs chapter 3, and compare to what Obama says. Now, if you put Obama on one page and Solomon on the other page, look at what Solomon says about how to raise children, and look at what Obama says about how to raise children, and you know what you've done? You've chosen what Obama says. See what I'm saying? Same thing with Tribulation Trump. You do the same thing with Tribulation Trump. Listen, let me just take a break. I'm coming back. I'm going to elongate on that in just a moment. I'll be right back. I'm not through with that subject matter, all right? Solomon's University, everybody. I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out, righteousness. Well, if you have funds to give Christmas gift, go to the Bethelite Marketplace and do some shopping there at the Bethelite Marketplace and give people gifts from that very, very exclusive website that we have, where you can give people some really, really classy antiques and gifts and stuff that just have a lot of meaning to it, rather than buying somebody a sweater or a pair of socks, or an umbrella, or giving them whatever it is, give them one of these very special gifts we have at the Bethelite Marketplace, right? And the other thing is that we have a lot of china, a lot of tea sets, and a lot of beautiful pewter and bowls and glasses, and just a lot of beautiful stuff, antiques. And you should buy something just to decorate. Look at those spoons and those pewters. You could buy that collection of pewter cups, or that coffee place, or those spoons, and for Thanksgiving. And really bring the people over, rather than drinking out those glasses you've been drinking out of those mayonnaise jars. Y'all don't know what I'm talking. People don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, but imagine setting your Thanksgiving table with those beautiful pewter and that beautiful silverware there, right? And it'll just be a beautiful thing. Oh, this is really nice. And we have beautiful platters and a lot of beautiful decorative bowls. Go to the Bethelite Marketplace. Go to the Bethelite Marketplace for your shopping, for Thanksgiving, for your dinner table, and for Christmas. Do that. And not only will you be a blessing by giving somebody something that's really meaningful, that will be around for a while. You give somebody a sweater or a pair of socks, they wear it once, and they'll take it back to the store and change it and get the money, and you won't even know that's what they did. But this is something that can be in family heirloom. You follow? Don't discount the Bethelite Marketplace. Go ahead now and do some shopping there, and have a beautiful Thanksgiving. Do some shopping, and now some of those stuff has already been sold, but you'll find out, and you'll have give somebody a beautiful gift, some beautiful jewelry. By the way, look for those women who are on our mailing list outside of New York City and New Jersey. You're going to get, in about a week or so, 2 weeks, you're going to get a beautiful necklace called the Mercy and Truth necklace. But my friends, use the Bethelite Marketplace. somebody, that beautiful pewter set of cups would be a great place. You put a little wine in it, put some, iced tea or something in it, Oh, I say you don't drink wine. Okay, all right, okay. Well, Jesus did. Anyway, so this is just some beautiful stuff to make your Thanksgiving dinner, and surely do your Christmas shopping. You'll catch two birds with one net. One is that you'll have a priceless gift that will last for hundreds of years, and you'll also help us fight the foreclosure that is beaming down on us every day as they're trying to take our building. Look at all that beautiful jewelry. That is some really beautiful stuff, really beautiful stones, and just some great artwork to that. Use the Bethelite Marketplace. Go to our website, click into the Bethelite Marketplace, and you'll be there. All right.
Hi, come in. Since the pandemic, I haven't had any house guests, so I decided to invite a couple of friends over. And guess what? They love the way I've redecorated. What's my secret? Bethelite Marketplace. They have wonderful items such as wall decor and fine china. So if you want to be the talk of the town, go to Bethelite Marketplace. And hurry. Come to Bethelite Marketplace, the one-stop shopping dream.
All right, so here's the question. Well, let me state a question I've asked myself to some degree. What would the world, and I don't mean for this to be a message simply about racism or races. I'm a preacher of righteousness that incorporates everybody, but I want to look specifically at one of the social ills of our planet, and that is the problem with black people and their inability to understand how the world works. Africa, the poorest continent, sickest, less developed, is a reality that I want to address with the scripture, with the word of God, but not to be about racism, as it were. But here, so I raised the question, what would the world be like if there had never been a Dr. King or a social civil rights movement? How would the races would have transitioned from slavery, the curse of Noah upon his son Ham and Canaan? And where we would be. One of the things is that I believe we'd be much better off. That it's probably very difficult for most of you to envision a world without the advent of civil rights. But you have to realize, while a few house Negroes pension those Negroes, that is to say, those that have made it, done well, are in the minuscule, if you will, minority. The ones that have gone, the prison population increase, the deaths, the children without fathers in the home. There's been an actual flipping. Before civil rights, 90% of fathers were in the homes. After civil rights, 90% of the fathers are out of the homes. That within itself is just enough to say, no, we want to roll the clock back before civil rights, before Dr. King. Before civil rights, maybe 200,000 people in prison all across America. After civil rights, they got more than 3 million black men alone in prison that have been taken out of the neighborhoods and now put in these warehouses called prison. If you roll the clock back, you get maybe 200,000 men in prison, and you get another 2.5 million who are still in the neighborhood, working the stores, taking care of their children, building schools, building communities. And you see, but it's very difficult for people to see that. But here's an example that you're not going to be able to run away with. Those of y'all who, if you're dealing with people who've got this unbiblical point of view, yet they call themselves Christians. Here's what I want to say to you. Who's your favorite Negro, right? Who's your favorite Negro? Barack Hussein Obama. He's a Negro's favorite Negro. He's chief Negro of all Negroes. Barack Hussein Obama, right? Chief Negro. So now, if you compare the teachings of Obama being the chief Negro of Negroes, right, and ask him questions on how do you raise your children, right? Ask him that question. Now we could talk about economics. We could talk about if you will, financial development. But I don't want to take you too far afield. I just want to put these two people together. Put Obama on one page, put Solomon on the other page. Solomon says, well, here, Solomon says, my son, forget not the law. Right? That's what Solomon says. Now, Obama, the chief Negro, when he was running for president, remember how he laughed and said, ha, 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 ha. The Bible says to stone your son if he doesn't do the right thing. Who would do that? Ha, ha, ha. Obama laughed. And he also said, and about eating shellfish, you can't eat shellfish. Or the Bible says you can't eat shellfish. Ha, 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 ha. And so you take all Obama's teaching and subject yourself to the chief Negro, Obama, right? Now let's see what Solomon has to say. Solomon says, my son, forget not the law. The law says stone that boy if he ain't got no, so he act crazy. Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1, my son, forget not the law. Forget not the law, but let thine heart keep my commandment. Now Obama laughed at that. He actually laughed. He's a chief Negro, but he laughed at what Solomon said. All right, verse 11 of Proverbs chapter 3, Solomon says, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. Now, Obama says you don't chasten your children. You grow up as their friends. You kind of let them find their way. So here you got two men, right? You got Obama, the chief Negro, and you got Solomon. And I'll tell you this, which one are you following? Which one are you following? You can't serve both. You can't follow both. Now, I'll tell you, most of the, Hamite people, if not all of them, are following Obama, and they have rejected Solomon. But now, who's the real fool here? Are you saying that Obama is wiser than Solomon? Is that what you're saying? I mean, you're making a choice. You're choosing Obama over Solomon, the wisest, richest, God-blessed man that ever lived. And we know, I'm just going to stick this, and I know this I'm going to jug you with this, and I know I'm jugging you. Solomon know who his daddy was. Obama ain't sure. Solomon know who his mama was. Obama's mama, well, But look at this, and this is really a cameo view of life among black people. They choose Obama over Solomon every time. And it's not enough, because I've been around these black folk, I see them talk. It ain't enough that they choose Obama over Solomon, but they want to kill you if you choose Solomon. If you say, but no, Solomon's wiser than Obama. Solomon blessed of God, the wisest, richest man. I wouldn't even think about I wouldn't have to think about who I'm going to choose between Obama and Solomon. I'm going to choose Solomon. If you talk like that around there, they will kill you, the Obama worshipers. They will. So you see the difficulty. So when God revealed to me that the simplicity of the explanation of why black people are at the bottom of the totem pole, and the world's social totem pole, and they don't understand the world. They never built a seaworthy vessel. There are no major beautiful African skylines of cities, of buildings. There's no major African economic system. It just doesn't. It's non-existent, and the reason being is we can find it in Proverbs chapter 3, starting at verse 1 right down to verse 20. But more poignantly, because all those things, economics and development and becoming a conqueror of the world, is all encompassed or explained in those 20 verses. And then in verse 11, it says that you despise not the chastening of the Lord, which I consider it like discovering a cure for cancer. It is the cure for black people. It is the cure for black people that they finally say, Noah chastened his son Ham and his grandson Canaan, and we accept that as love. That what he said to Ham and Canaan was love. And how he chastened all of us to go through the slavery process was the love of God. Even some of you are having difficulty dealing with that, but that's what Solomon says. And we see it worked out. I guarantee you that the police shootings, the unemployment, when you take 2 million men out of a nation of 30 million people, you take 2 million men away from children and put them in a prison someplace, and they go there not because white people are racist. Listen, during slavery, there were very few black men that ever went to prison. You say, well, because they hung them all. Okay, well, not that. But it was only when this whole business of rebelling and not responding to authority that the prison population for black men exploded. Hamites, Latinos are Hamites as well. We're talking about the Hispanic people. They're Hamites as well, but of a different brood. Asian people, Koreans, Chinese, they're Hamites as well, but they have a different structure. Most Latino families have a father in the house. Most now, it's getting worse now as it goes along, and some Latinos are now, allowing Obama to teach them to be LGBTQ. All that's going on. We know that. But most Asians, if you go to South Korea or North Korea or China, and you find that the father's not, you go to house in Hangzhou or Beijing or Shanghai, and in most of those houses, not all of them, you'll find the father there. He's gonna be there. He's gonna be there. Oh, you go to China, you ain't gonna find a whole neighborhood with women raising children. The father don't nobody know where's that. Either in jail, on the street, in drugs, or dead. You ain't gonna find that in China, North Korea. So when these people look at us, Hamites, black people, right? My God. You go to China, you ain't gonna find houses after house after house after house after house after house that there's no father there. That only happens with the civil rights people. That only happens with the Obama worshiper. That only happened when the house Negro and the pensioner Negro population. That only happens. You can't find it in India. You can't find it among Latinos. You can't find it among the Chinese. You can't find it nowhere but among black people. Now they're Hamites. And given a chance, they'll choose Obama over Solomon every time. Every time. Because they themselves, they don't want the biblical authority that Solomon says, put that rod on that boy's back. Now I'm focusing on that, but there's a whole lot more sweeter things, if you will, in the Proverbs chapter 1, verse 20. I wanted to be able to point those things up, but this would be the economic basis for. Just to get that father back at home, and we would have to, Hamites would have to finally say, okay, what God said in Genesis chapter 9, verse 24 is correct. The chastening was because God loved us. And we're ready to move on. I said the other day, I don't know whether or not, people, I think I've discovered the cure for cancer. I've discovered the cure for racial disparity, for economic depravity. This Proverbs chapter 3 is equivalent to what I've been teaching over the last couple of weeks, is equivalent to discovering the cure for cancer. Cure for cancer of the black man. Now, again, I think most of y'all that listen to me on a regular basis know I'm not here just teaching about black people. I think you know that. Well, I spent a lot of emphasis there. I'm in Harlem, my God, and black people have a lot of problems. They're the sickest, so you want to attend to people that are sick. But it's not about racism itself. And, the other thing, of course, is that not only, I said a few moments ago, if you put Donald Trump on one page, to give a super white man right now, you put him on one page and put Solomon on one page, there are a whole lot of people would choose Donald Trump over Solomon. I wonder what happened to Robert Jeffress. Remember him, the guy who was Southern Baptist guy of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, Texas. And they out there when Trump was running, and first year or so Trump was president, he was all over the place praising Trump. Haven't heard anything from him in 3 or 4 years because he realized that he chose Trump over Solomon and found out that Trump had conned him and played him. You don't see nothing about them Southern Baptists running behind Trump anymore because they got played. So it shows you that people with church people and pastors of prominence like Robert Jeffress chose Trump over Solomon, knowing that Trump was a hustler. He knew that. But that's human nature. It's baked into the DNA, and it's a part of the process and the appeal of Satan. So this business, this teaching, I feel that it is the cure for cancer. And let me just further state to you, look at people around you, because you interact with a lot of other people, is that right? We focus on Hamites for just a minute. Look at all the Hamite people that would choose Obama in a minute over Solomon. They will. They had no problems choosing Obama, even though he laughed at the scriptures. He laughed at the Old Testament about stoning your son, about eating shellfish. He laughed at that, and yet they chose him. And that may not be a major issue in terms of eating what you eat, but the discipline of your son is very important. But they chose him over what Solomon says or over what Jesus says. So when we consider here that the problem here of a world, when we roll back to, let's say, 1871, just to take what we're looking at, 6 years after the slavery and the Emancipation the Proclamation earlier, 2 years earlier, and we develop the Hamite community in America under a total understanding that the slavery was ordered by God as a chastening of Ham and Canaan. Go all the way back to 1871. Go all the way back to 1871, 6 years after slavery. And every black person, a Hamite, a former slave, would see America through the view of the Bible rather than the view of what is now civil rights and rebellion. Imagine, can you imagine what would have happened? We would have nearly 150 years of economic development because we're going to learn. It would be tantamount to, well, it took the Jews 40 years after they came out of slavery. It took them 40 years and some really dire consequences and circumstances before they began to jiggy with the word of God, and God had to give them the word as well in the laws of Moses. It took them 40 years. So what it took was about 40 years, and what the Hamite people did, rather than going to the word of God and seeing their experience here in America as slaves, as God chastening Ham and Canaan, and then developing from there along what Solomon would teach, they chose the other road of rebelling against what the word of God says. Now, I don't know if I'm, going too fast or if I'm not taking the time to explain all this in a profitable way, but I can tell you, had they chosen the biblical way, had they chosen Solomon over Obama, Hamite people would be the wealthiest. There's no telling what the level of wealth. I mean, if you look at if you go to Tokyo, Japan, or you go to China, Beijing, and while Chinese people suffered for a long time as poor people, but you go to China now, or even to Europe, the slave master, the slaves could have been greater than the slave master if they'd gone down the right road. Now, God's called me to establish a nation where all of this, what I'm teaching you now, choose Solomon over Obama. Choose Solomon over the house Negro. Choose Solomon over the pension-nosed Negro. Choose Solomon, choose Solomon, choose Solomon. How well it's received? It's And to explain also, you see, your economic problem is not white racism. I mean, you could say that the white man does this or that, he doesn't allow money to flow, but you can make your own money if you use the biblical principle. You can make your own money. You can have you don't have to go to his bank if you use the biblical principle. If you use the biblical principles. So for a person such as myself who's been called to establish ATLAH, in a nutshell definition, I have been called to ask people to choose Solomon over Obama. That's in a cameo, if you will, explanation of what ATLAH is all about and why I teach what I do and how I teach. Choose Solomon and chasten your son. Chasten him. Choose Solomon and love the law. Love the Old Testament. Love every last word of it. Choose Solomon. My son, forget not the law, for length of days and long life it shall be given to you. And forget not, let not mercy and truth forsake thee, but bind it about thy neck, and thou shalt find favor and good understanding with men and with God. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. My son, my son, my son. That is what I have been called to implement, and reason why God has given me 16 years of teaching one chapter. 16 years of teaching just one chapter, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface. We've just now, after 16 years, been allowed into the graduate school of Solomon's University in Solomon Space. And I'm going to remain faithful, of course. I'm going to remain faithful mainly because I love God. That's primary, and he asked me to do it. I don't want to disappoint him. God asked me to teach ATLAH, sent me here to Harlem, cry loud and spare not, tell the truth, even if my mama hates me. Don't even blink at that. Let her hate me all she wants. But I'm going to be faithful to God. I'm going to do exactly what he tells me to do. And I'm not going to turn to the right nor to the left. God sent me on assignment. I'm not going to disappoint him. I'm going to establish ATLAH. But the other thing is this, is that I love my brethren too. And I see, oh man, you're in such pain. And you don't have to be there. You don't have to be in prison. You don't have to have your children raised in shelters. You don't have to be gay. You don't have to be that way, brother. And you're in pain. You're sick. You're living at the bottom of the world social register. 90% of y'all are unemployed. And the other 5% are unemployable. You don't have to be that way, brother. And because I love him, I'm going to take all the heat that's thrown at me, even if my mama spit on me, because of the things I teach that's so contrary to blackness and ignorance and foolishness and churchianity and religiosity. And I rebuke it up and down Main Street. I'm going to serve the Lord. I ain't going to turn to the right nor to the left till I can get my brother out of this position of being the lowest person on the planet. He's the last thing on the planet. He's got the poorest nation, called himself Africa, come from the poorest continent the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen nothing like the poverty. He called himself Africa. No, I ain't going to give up on him. I'm going to help him. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant.